Welcome back. And so national security is our focus on our first segment this morning. And Captain Bishop Johnson, retired, joins us. He is also a former U.S. Army captain. He joins us virtually this morning. Good morning, Captain Johnson. It's good to have you again on the program.
Good morning, and thank you for having me.
Captain Johnson, it's a very troubling morning today because of the kidnap of another 25 girls. We thought we had exited the period of Dapchi, Chibok, Kankara, but we're talking about the kidnap of our students, our young children yet again. And, you know, this is also amid reports about the ambushing of Nigerian army officials in the north and the kidnap of the capture of a brigadier general. We're waiting for confirmation from the DHQ on that particular story. And this comes amid conversations about the designation of Nigeria as a country of particular concern. The U.S. subcommittee Congress will be holding hearings on that redesignation by President Trump. But what do you think is happening in the minds of these bandits and terrorists? And I ask this intentionally because when that story about the redesignation of Nigeria as a country of particular concern came through, the reactions, were concerning, with, warnings to the Nigerian government that this should not be taken serious, lightly. So is this a sort of affront, a daring of the terrorists?
Once again, good morning, and thank you for having me. I don't think that security had improved, or that the designation of Nigeria as a CPC is probably the reason why we saw this abduction. The truth of the matter, I listened to your guest who was in your studio to do the newspaper review this morning, and that is exactly the same position that I take. What is happening in Nigeria is that Nigeria is in a web of commercialized criminal enterprise. All of it is centered around illicit mining of Nigerian natural resources and minerals at the outer fringes of Nigeria's north. There's a web of criminal entities that are all working in cahoots to create a dangerous environment in those states where you have those mineral resources so that they can create an enabling environment for them to come in and illicitly mine Nigerian minerals. And unfortunately, as that your guest also agreed, Nigeria has found itself in a situation where we are only reacting after the crime has taken place. I'm not saying that there's no effort to preempt and prevent crimes, but the effort we are putting into, preempt and prevent crimes is much more minimal. And that's why you see these crimes taking place, and then we continue to react after the crimes have taken place. And so long as we are policing Nigeria in that manner, where we react after an incident had occurred, we will continue to go in circles, because the entities that are engaged in these illicit mining activities will continue to throw everything in the wheels of progress of security in Nigeria, so that they will have a free hand to continue with their illicit operation. And unfortunately, the entities that are involved in this criminal enterprise, I doubt that Nigerian government, when I say Nigerian government, I mean the presidency, had taken time to study who is contributing to this insecurity in Nigeria, because some of them also involve some of the people that we want to depend on to protect Nigerians and defend Nigeria, because they are all benefiting from these illicit criminal activities.
Interesting. It's a mixed bag of many things, depending on what you and who you're speaking to. And sometimes we've noticed, and I would like you to speak to it. I know you are a military man, but I don't know how you can lace it around political happenings. Sometimes we notice that as we navigate towards the election season, especially general election, we see a surge in attacks. What do you make of that?
Well, we are not that very close to our election. Our election is in 2027, and we are in 2025. Except that we are in a country where we are in a perpetual campaign mode for election. Election will just end today, and the next day, we are campaigning for the next election cycle. Otherwise, I don't see why an election that is coming up in 2027, we are not campaigning today. I wouldn't personally attribute this to political season. I would say that the actors who are involved in this illicit mining activities, there are foreign entities that are financing criminal gangs as a diversionary tactic for them to have free hand to be able to mine our minerals without much opposition from our government. And both some criminal elements in those communities are also working with them. You see, insecurity in Nigeria has become a business, and that's why I describe it as a commercialized criminal entities, right? If you're a state governor, the more insecurity you have in your state, the higher your security votes. There are retired military personnel who are engaged in this illicit mining. They own mining blocks. There are community leaders that are benefiting from it. And then you have foreign governments whose citizens are here conniving with Nigerian locals and even governments and people of our neighboring countries to continue to create this havoc so that they will continue to benefit from the mining of illicit minerals in Nigeria. So, look, we have to take this matter serious. Nigeria is in a serious mess. And then you consider the fact that our borders are to greater extent porous. I commend the efforts that the current Minister of Interior is making to sanitize that sector and that ministry, but he can't do it alone. He needs support from many, many different entities to work with him to secure our borders, so that way we will know who is coming into the country and for what reasons that they're coming. So long as our borders remain as porous as they are, particularly in those northern sectors where you have all these minerals, there will continue to be all these criminal activities. Just look around the world. Anywhere you see illicit mining activities going on, it always comes with a whole lot of insecurity, because these are lucrative businesses that people make fortunes out of the misfortunes of other people, which is very unfortunate.
If I get you correctly, Captain Johnson, you're saying that those who have been charged with the responsibility of protecting us are part of this illegal mining activity, fueling insecurity in Nigeria's north, and the administration is also aware. So if that is the case, assuming without conceding, is that why there is there's apparently no resolve, no evidence in the direction of overhauling our security architecture, when you consider the way and manner in which attacks continue to occur without any significant difference in the approach to tackling them?
Well, I would say that that's why in my previous statement I said that I don't know whether the presidency is aware. So when you say administration, I don't know whether you're referring to the presidency or you're talking about members of his cabinet. But what I'm telling you is that there are very highly privileged individuals in this country who are conniving with some foreign entities and the locals to create the upheaval of insecurity that you see in those fringe states in Nigeria, so that they will be distracted. Because right now, as these schoolgirls are kidnapped, the attention of government is focused on how to rescue those schoolgirls, and these people are abusing, carrying out their illicit activities, in mining our minerals. Just look around all over the world. That's what happens. And I give you a typical example. I'm from the Niger Delta. I saw at the peak of oil bunkering in the Niger Delta because it took place in my village, right? So when I go home, I see illicit, activities in the oil sector. There is no way any one of those actors could have succeeded in bunkering activities without the cooperation of security agencies. It's not possible. It's not even imaginable, because even when you succeed in getting the crude and refining it locally, you still have to get it down to the market. And I know that everywhere in my community, or the waterways, there were houseboats manned by joint teams of the Navy, the Army, the Civil Defense. On the roads, there were, checkpoints by the police, the military. So how do you get it to the market? Yet these people were still able to get their product to the market. But so long as they are not able to get their product to the market, you see that there will be no market for their activity, and that activity will naturally die. But because somehow they get the product to the market, the buyers are there, the buyers were also able to get their own product to the market, the activity continued until they started engaging the effort of these local people like Tantita Security Services, and Tantita started recruiting the local people, and even to some extent, those of the people who were involved in those activities, and they stopped. It's been reduced probably by 70 to 80%. What we used to see when we travel home, we're no longer seeing it. And so what I'm telling you is that there is no way these illicit activities will be taking place in our country without the support of these individuals. The security, we have to have some level of support for them to be able to succeed, because they must be able to get these things out of the country. They must be able to get it from the point of mining to the market where they dispose of them. And to that extent.
Hello, can you hear us? Oh dear.
Within the
okay.
What I'm telling you, that there is a coordinated and collaborative effort of different actors who are benefiting from the status quo, and those are
it seems the network.
The ones who are cooperating to continue to perpetuate. In a, we are reacting. We are reacting to the problems instead of being preemptive and preventive in the manner that we are.
All right. Captain, can you hear me? Can you hear me, sir? Oh dear.
We are approaching centered around the illicit activities.
Captain, can you hear me?
Yes, I'm hearing you.
Okay, at some point where the network was freezing, so we're not hearing everything you're saying, but maybe we'll move on. And you mentioned something I want to go back to. And staying on these girls, I'm just, I think we're all traumatized as a nation when it comes to these kinds of incidents. So Chibok schoolgirls, some escaped, some were rescued, a lot more still with the captors, whether they are dead or alive, only God knows. Dapchi schoolgirls, about 110 were abducted. I think about 104, 106 or so were rescued. So others couldn't be rescued. Leah Sharibu is one of them. And now 25 girls. So there's the anxiety on my mind as to, will the 25 girls come back? Putting that at the back of your mind, how should government approach this? Because we're already traumatized as a country. We know how this ends. They never come back complete.
Yes, from the experience, you judge every situation in anywhere from past experience. From past experience, it's not something that I wish on any parent. Unfortunately, the time is fast elapsing within which we are supposed to have recovered these children. You see, the first 72 hours in kidnap situation is very, very important. And it is important because you don't want them to be taken far away from the point where they are kidnapped and then taken to some other places or even dispersed into different societies, thereby making it much more difficult for you to be able to locate and rescue them. That's why the first 72 hours is very, very important. I don't know how much assets was deployed immediately after the kidnap, because that's what would have limited the people's ability to be able to go further away from the point of the incident. But this is typically what is supposed to happen. What is supposed to happen is that immediately the news of that kidnap broke, we're supposed to have deployed as many assets as possible and create a perimeter around that area to prevent those people from escaping from within the local vicinity of the point of incident. Had we done that, we would have been able to say authoritatively that within so and so time, we'll be able to locate those children and rescue them. Because that's one thing that baffles me. How in the world do you kidnap 100 and something students and you are able to safely remove all of them from the point of kidnap? Nobody saw them. How did they move? Did they travel by road? Did they load them in vehicles? Did they walk inside the bush? So when you listen to some of all these things, there are things that just don't add up. They just don't add up. And so how do they move all these people? Through which means? By truck, by road, by air? Did they walk in the forest? And so some of all these questions are critical questions that we need to ask. And if we can provide a genuine and sincere answers to some of these questions, we'll be able to begin to find solution to them. So yes, the answer to your question is time is fast gone for us to have the hope of finding these girls. The first 72 hours, the most critical time for us to be able to limit their movement and be able to rescue them. So I'm hopeful, I'm still giving out hope that those who are supposed to rescue them are still working and that they know what they're doing, and at the end of the day, they should be able to rescue them. But I'm also being cautious based on the antecedent of this country with respect to kidnap of, school children. Hopefully, they will be rescued when the people responsible start asking for bounties, because usually when they kidnap for purposes of generating money to buy more arms and arm themselves even more formidably to be able to challenge authorities. So they will start asking for ransom and all that stuff. And you see negotiations going back and forth. So I'll leave it at that.
And that's another conversation entirely, the approach to tackling this through negotiation with bandits and, Nigeria's de-radicalization program. But there's another bit of it that is just as critical and is still on the front burner. I asked it earlier as we opened the conversation. I was hoping you would speak to it, but it now takes on an even deeper meaning with your position that there are foreign bodies, or foreign elements involved in fueling this insecurity in Nigeria. What does this mean, amid conversations of the designation of Nigeria as a country of particular concern and the proposal of military intervention in Nigeria? What does this renewed resurgence of attacks, what does it mean against the backdrop of that particular conversation?
As I stated earlier, I don't see the connection between what is happening now and probably that designation, because I don't believe that insecurity has subsided in Nigeria. I feel that we haven't had incident because now to plan and execute this insecurity that you see, it takes some time and it takes resources for them to be able to plan it. And so anytime that nothing is happening doesn't necessarily mean that insecurity has gone down. It means that the people are there in their incubation period, planning on how to successfully execute their activities. Not that insecurity has gone down, because quite frankly, I don't see permanent measures that we have put in place to checkmate the inflow of people into our country. We are surrounded by a whole bunch of poor and chaotic countries, from the Sahel through Niger and Chad. And then we have a situation where our borders are not as properly secured as they should be. You know, I am one of those who believe that, look, for us to deal with the insecurity in Nigeria, because we have bad neighbors. We have bad neighbors. We have neighbors that see Nigeria like the way people in Latin America see the United States. They see Nigeria as an El Dorado, where whenever they come in, they make money and they go home and they live comfortably at home. The thing has even fueled a situation where even their politicians are sponsoring people to come to Nigeria and cause havoc and make money and return home. Otherwise, how do they get the weapons that they use? Who is, sponsoring them? So, like I said, it's a whole web of criminal enterprise involving Nigerians and foreigners who connive to cause this level of insecurity upheaval in those fringe states in the country, so that they will continue to mine Nigeria's mineral resources without anybody challenging them. But that is what is going on in this country.
Captain Johnson.
For us to stop it, we will take our border security very seriously. Areas that we need to build wall, we build wall and fence. Areas that it's not possible for walls and fence, we use technology to secure those areas. Areas we cannot use technology, we use human beings and mine them. We must secure our borders. When we secure our borders, we will not be able to eliminate the insecurity that is brought upon us by external factors. And those that are local and internal will be able to focus our effort in dealing with the internal insecurity. But we must first and foremost remove the external factor from the insecurity we have in Nigeria, so we can focus on solving the internal insecurity. If we don't do that, we'll continue to go in circle, continue to react after the incident has taken place with no permanent solution in sight.
Captain Johnson, specifically, what does this mean for the ongoing diplomatic efforts and talks between the Nigerian government and the U.S. government over the proposed military intervention?
I have talked a lot about this military intervention. You see, the way some Nigerians are taking it, they're taking it as an infringement upon their sovereignty, right? People are already infringing on our sovereignty. There are nationals, Chinese nationals, Korean nationals, some of whom are here illegally, brought in by Nigerians to help them to continue to illicitly mine our mineral resources. That's why immediately that threat came from the US. Guess the first country that was quick to react and respond to it, it was China. Because the Chinese people are here causing havoc in Nigeria. In the name of helping Nigeria, they are creating insecurity by illegally mining our mineral resources, establishing illegal cyber businesses where they hired Nigerians. And I'm not the one saying it. EFCC has busted a lot of those businesses, illegal businesses, carrying out illegal activities. The same thing is happening in the mining sector. And so, look, the US can be a force of good and a force of evil. There is no question about that. But I believe that the United States is more of a force of good than bad. We should approach the United States with sincerity of purpose, acknowledging that we have problems. And the advice I had given to this administration in every fora that I had found myself is to say, look, it's for them to just only take ownership of this particular administration that began in 2023. Mr. President, even though Buhari was a member of his party, should not take ownership of Buhari's administration. Because as far as I am concerned, Buhari's administration was a disastrous catastrophe in terms of security in this country. So he shouldn't take ownership of that administration. He should also not take ownership of administration of Goodluck Jonathan, because as far as I am concerned, that other one was a catastrophic disaster in terms of security in Nigeria. He should only take ownership of his own administration. Look, yes, I recognize we have security challenges. That's why I ran, because those I had helped into government, whom I believe I had would solve the problem. We are unable to solve that problem. That's why I ran, and that's why I am here. So I own this problem. Yes, we have challenges. Look at the steps that we have taken so far. These are the challenges that we are facing, Mr. President. Understand, I've only been in office for 2 years. How can you help us? So we can have a genuine discussion with the United States on how they can come in and assist us genuinely, okay, genuinely, than being dismissive on the issue of sovereignty. And I've had some university professors talking about international laws. Come on, man. Nigeria cannot lecture America about international law and sovereignty. Sovereignty, the principle of sovereignty, they all came from the West. International law, America has been an architect of driving international law. The evolution of the United Nations, it came from the United States. And so we are not in a position to go and lecture them about all those things. They know about all those things. And those things don't apply when they want to achieve anything. You can see it in what is happening in the Caribbean Sea with Venezuela. There's a talk about how to invade Venezuela until Maduro comes to negotiating table. You can see what happened in Gaza. So the talk of international law and sovereignty is not going to work with Americans,
Captain,
particularly this administration, because this is an administration that shoots first and then asks questions later. And so this is what our government has to do: get into genuine negotiation with Americans on how they can help us to solve our insecurity problem, including the insecurity problem that emanates from external factors. Okay.
All right, Captain, if I may come in, to add to your thoughts, and I know that you had mentioned, it's so early to call the political class. It's not. Trust me, elections are just 17 months away. We monitor these things, and we know a few things. So sometimes there are enemies of states that sometimes it's an interplay of geopolitics. It's a mixed bag of many things. It's a mixed bag of geopolitics, religion, ethnicity, and even people who are trying to make the government look bad. It's a mixed bag of many things. That's why my concern mostly is not with those. My concern is how we can protect our people, because this interplay is not happening everywhere. There are some places it's happening, but it's way more manageable than the others. And that is a list I want us to enter as a country. And I want to talk about ungoverned spaces. If you go to parts of the north, the expansive land, before you see any living creature in terms of their settlement distribution, is really difficult. And these are the areas that these attackers, these terrorists, I don't like calling anybody bandits. Anybody who kills people for all of the reasons that we're familiar with is a terrorist in my view. I may be wrong. I'm not an expert in security. Maybe you can educate me on that. And I feel that they should book an assignment with God by the Nigerian state as quickly as possible. It's as simple as that, if they are killing our soldiers in combat. So where I'm going to with this is how America also has expansive places. I know they don't have the kind of challenges and neighbors we have, because if you look at their geography, surrounded by Mexico down there, Canada up there, the only people that may be given the issue is just Mexico and the immigration. So their case is not like ours, but they have these expanded spaces. How much of technology can we deploy to help us? Because I keep thinking, why are we not investing in as intense technology, as sophisticated technology as possible, especially at the far ends of the hinterlands, around our borders that are porous?
You see, we have outdated laws in this country that are also hampering our ability to police our country, right? If you have to bring in drones into Nigeria, you have to get clearance from the Office of the National Security Advisor, because we are placing primary benefit, we are placing secondary obstruction over primary benefit, that people may import drones and be able to overthrow the government or secede from Nigeria. Therefore, we are limiting our ability to revolutionize technologically, like as is being done in other countries. So we need to tackle those outdated laws. That's one. Number two, if you look at private security sector, there are over 1 million private security guards in this country that this country is not effectively utilizing, especially in terms of gathering of intelligence information. We ask and encourage our citizens, if you see something, you say something. But most people who are not trained may not be able to decipher what is a security threat from what is not, and may not even have the courage to call in. So that's why people like us should, I've been a proponent of trying how to use the private security sector more effectively to aid us in combating criminal activities in Nigeria. That said, let me go back to what you said about ungoverned space. There is no place in Nigeria that is supposed to be ungoverned. And this is because there is nowhere in Nigeria that is not a local government area. Every place in Nigeria is a local government area, covered by a local government administration that is supposed to be able to govern those areas. So when we talk about ungoverned spaces, how? Why? The reason is because we have killed the local government administrations. The local government structure is almost non-existent. The governors have constituted themselves into vampires that every money that is supposed to go for local government administration, they will just hijack it at the state level. And they're not allowing the local government to function effectively. Back in the days when local government were functioning effectively, in conjunction with our traditional leadership institutions, this country has minimal insecurity until we began to bastardize those two institutions, and that brought us to where we are. Nigerian land space did not increase. If anything, it even diminished. Yet, in that time period, we were able to maintain law and order across the 774 local government areas in Nigeria. So we're not supposed to have a government space, if you ask me, because our land did not increase. What has diminished is the resources at the disposal of our local government administrations to be able to dispense governance to their people. You see, sometimes we blame the security agencies and the military. They cannot kill this. We can't kill ourselves out of this problem.
True.
Governance is important. Governance is a part of security strategy. People who are charged with responsibility of providing governance must provide governance so that we can remove those small criminal elements from the equation and focus our attention on those who are bent on causing havoc in our country. Unfortunately, we have a situation in Nigeria where the local governments are in comatose. Therefore, they render no services to the people, and those people are hungry, and they add to a whole bunch of population at the disposal of these criminal elements to recruit into their enterprise.
Let me come in there.
And continue to carry out insecurity that you see in the country right now.
Yeah, and besides the local governance structure, the president recently launched the National Forest Guards Initiative, a new line of defense to tackle banditry and insurgency. And so we might ask, since you talked about the first 72 hours being critical after a kidnap, why, or if that particular structure will be, critical to respond to that and ensure that, the girls are got. We could also ask about, the ambush to Nigerian armed forces in Dambuwa in Borno, which saw the capture of a certain brigadier, Uba, why that has not also, come through as a timely intervention to rein in on the situation. But we must anchor at this point, and thank you very much for coming on the show and providing your experience to this particular security matter. We've been talking with Captain Bishop Johnson, retired and a former U.S. Army official. Thank you for coming on the program.
Thank you for having me.
We'll take a moment now. When we return, it will be time to take a critical look at the judiciary amid concerns of political interference. So stay with us. We'll be right back.